Okay, let's get started. So hello and welcome to today's webinar. Thank you for joining us. My name is Stuart and I'm the AWS Content Director here at Cloud Academy. And today we're going to be focusing on Amazon Lightsail and in particular object storage when using Lightsail. Now this is a relatively new element of the service which was announced in July this year, and it allows you to store your static content such as images, videos or HTML files to use with your websites or applications. Now, on the panel with me today, we have Darko. He's a Senior Developer Advocate at AWS. So welcome to the webinar, Darko. I really appreciate you joining me. How are you and where are you calling in from today?
Thank you, Stuart. I am pretty good. Calling in from rainy Serbia. So yeah, it's 6 p.m. here, my time. So very happy to be here.
It's raining here as well. It's pretty miserable all around, I think.
I'm
looking forward to the present. Sorry?
Like a typical November day. So
indeed it is. I'm looking forward to your presentation you have for us today. But before I hand it over to you, Darko, to give us the agenda, I just want to let everyone know that this webinar is being recorded, and so you'll all receive a link to it as soon as it's been published. And also, if you do have any questions as we go through the presentation today, then please use the chat window and we'll try to get to as many of them as we can as we go through the session. So, okay, over to you, Darko. Let's get into it.
Thank you very much. I do believe my screen has been shared, so you should be able to see my screen over there, or I don't know where GoToWebinar shows it for you, but for me, it's there. Excellent. Let's kick it off. I'm going to switch to PowerPoint now so I can kind of actually click on stuff. First of all, thank you very much for joining me in this presentation. I appreciate your time. And as Stuart said, feel free to ask me questions. There's a question box somewhere on the side. So we're going to do this like it's live and in real time. So we're going to try to answer the questions as soon as we can. So let's talk about Amazon Lightsail storage. First of all, let me talk about you. Have you ever wanted to host a website, let's say a WordPress blog? I'm sure you have. I'm sure you met somebody who has. Usually what you need to host a WordPress website, you need a server, right? And of course you can get an EC2 instance on AWS and all of the fun things there. But let's say you want something quick and dirty, right? You want something simple. You don't have the people who can help you maintain it. You just want some simple, let's call it a VPS hosting, but with the backing of a major cloud. This is where the Lightsail comes in, right? So we can give you all of the fun servers, all of the compute resources to host your websites, your blogs, your whatevers, but still be simple and robust as AWS. Now, when you host a website, when you host something on WordPress, it's all fine and dandy until you start talking about storage, right? Storage is usually the problem here. When you need to expand, when you need to scale, when you need to move a server, storage gets iffy very quickly. So today I'm going to talk to you about how can you add storage to your Lightsail instances. So let's kick it off. By kicking it off, I mean, let's look at the agenda. So I'm going to be talking today about Amazon Lightsail, some storage options when it comes to Amazon Lightsail, and also I'm going to be showing you how that actually works. So we're going to have a demo. I've prepared something, so but I'm going to do it live as much as possible. Okay, let's kick it off. Let me kick off my I want to do my stopwatch here just so I am sure I'm on time. So let's talk about Amazon Lightsail. What is Amazon Lightsail? We're wonderful with names, so when you hear the word Amazon Lightsail, you might not know what that is immediately. But it is our VPS offering, our virtual private server. If you ever had to pay or use your typical web hosting somewhere, think of it like that. It is definitely the easiest way to get started, to get something running on a server on AWS. It is just a excellent, neat little service that can help you host your website, your Windows workload, some storage, anything you want on AWS, again, with a couple of clicks, with wonderful, predictable low pricing. It takes 4 clicks to launch a server, that's all. You could do some database, you can do containers, and a whole lot of different things, right? So why would you use this? Why not go on EC2 or RDS or container services on AWS? Well, it's easy, right? It's just click and you can launch something within minutes. It can actually scale as you use it. It's relatively simple to scale it up, and it's also possible to move it to EC2 if you outgrow, let's say, the usage on Lightsail. And we manage all the fun things for you. So from your servers to your storage to your databases and even to the container backends, we all do it for you. You just do what's important, and that is build your website. One of the fun things about AWS, and I use the term fun very loosely, is pricing. Sometimes when you get into the weeds of AWS and you start using multiple different services, multiple different things, pricing can be, to say the least, confusing. And Lightsail has you covered here, because Lightsail has this amazing predictable pricing. You literally pay how much it says on the tin. So if you take your instance, if you take your server for $3.50 a month, you pay $3.50 a month. That's it, right? There's no additional cost. You get your half a gig of RAM, you get your 1 vCPU, you get 20 gigs of storage, and you get 1 terabyte of transfer. That's what you get for this money. Again, it is just wonderful that you can kind of predict. And sometimes some workloads are just fine with this. You can just, I know that I'm not going to spend more than 2 terabytes of transfer, and I will pay $5 a month. Wonderful. Also, if you do not want to spend time and worry about like configuring servers, setting up WordPress, how much does it take you to install WordPress on your vanilla server? Like, you set up a Linux server, how long does it take you to set up a WordPress website? It takes a while, right? You have to install MySQL, you have to set up Apache, you have to, all of those fun things. Here, you have one-click blueprints, right? If you want to launch a website, an instance that contains WordPress, you can do it in literally a click. And it's just wonderful. It gets there fast. You have a bunch of other like blueprints, especially for Linux. You can do also Windows stuff here as well. So it just makes your life so much easier. So what is Amazon Lightsail? Your VPSs, your virtual private servers, your databases, your containers, your load balancers, your DNS management, and also you can do something with content delivery network. So if you need a CDN for your data, you can also set this up on Lightsail. If you want to expand this, if you want to go and reach out to AWS and access some other things, you can absolutely do that. You can connect the network on Lightsail to a VPC, so you can access some services there, right? You can access other AWS services, absolutely, and you can also have fun with the AWS IAM configurations and all the fun things. And what's great, you can actually move away from Lightsail if you decide that, okay, we've matured enough, I need the brunt of AWS, I need more complexity in my workload. I wouldn't call it upgrade, migrate to EC2 with your workload, which is just fun. It's a couple of clicks. You can basically export your server from Lightsail to EC2, which makes it so much fun. What do people run here? Web applications, development environments, websites, business software, anything you can think under the sun, it can run on Lightsail. So it is not limited to a specific thing. It's just a simpler way of interacting with these things. Think of it, a workload which doesn't require as much complexity in infrastructure. It's just a great way to do it on Lightsail. All right, I spent 5 minutes talking about Lightsail, and you may be wondering, who is this bald person and why is he screaming at me through the camera? Let me introduce myself. Stuart already did it for a moment, but my name is Darko, yes. My name is Darko Mesaros. I am a long-time builder, engineer. I am something they used to call a system administrator. I used to maintain a bunch of servers, both Windows and Linux. I spent, I think, 15 years now doing those things. I always wanted to automate things. I had a passion for automation. I had a passion for making my life easy. And now I want to make your life easy by teaching you some things and kind of showing you the tips and tricks and quirks, how you can do things in your day-to-day job while still having an easy day at it. I also happen to work for Amazon Web Services as a developer advocate, and I'm based in Berlin, Germany, but now I'm coming to you live from my childhood home. I'm at my mom's house. I got stuck in Serbia for some reason, and yeah, hello. So also feel free to follow me on the social medias if you want. I do some Twitter, I do LinkedIn, I even do some YouTube. If you want to see my big bald head more, that's the way to do it. Now, let's move on from Lightsail as an option to store your servers, to store your compute resources. Let's move on and talk about Lightsail storage, right? I made sure to get a very old hard disk. I was discussing this earlier. This is a Western Digital WD95044A, a 44 megabyte hard drive. We're not going to be talking about 44 megabyte hard drives. We're going to be talking about storage options for your servers, your instances, well, for anything on Amazon Lightsail. How can you actually store files on Lightsail? There's a couple of options we have here, right? It's a couple of options you can use to store your precious data and precious files on Lightsail. Let's start with the basic. Let's start with instance storage. This is storage which is directly attached to your server, right? This is directly attached to your EC2 instance. It's a disk that is being accessed as an operating system directly on your server, right? So every instance must have one, right? It's just, that's where everything sits on, right? It's your operating systems, and it also persists no matter how much you reboot or restart or move your instance around, right? And simple enough, this storage comes with the default bundle of any server, right? And this just makes sense. But this is sometimes not enough, right? Having a single disk attached to a server is okay, but you want more. You want it scalable. You want to be able to share storage between multiple servers. You want to be able to back up your instances, maybe expand the storage as you grow. Maybe you want to do storage on a really fast and reliable level. So there's a bunch of different options we can look at and you can use for your servers. But before we get into that, let's have a crash course in cloud storage, right? There are three types of storage typically accessed in the cloud: block storage, file storage, and object storage. What is block storage? This is block storage. Your hard disk, your virtual disk, that is block storage. Data is stored on blocks on the disks. It's physically stored on the disk, and the operating system, the Linux, the Windows you're running, is responsible for writing things on that disk. It's using the local operating system calls to write on a file system which is contained on that operating system on that disk, right? It's your typical, you mount the disk, you format it, you use it. And you can actually have this thing on a Lightsail instance, right? You, instead of just having a single, the single root drive, you can have multiple. You can basically attach up to 15 disks, up to 15 additional disks to your Lightsail instance. Let's say you have a WordPress server and you wish to expand the storage, add an additional drive beyond your root operating system, you can, right? You can attach this up to 16 terabytes per disk, which is a lot. And it's going to actually persist beyond the life of an instance. If you delete the instance, you can spin up a new instance, attach that disk to it, and the data will still be there. What's wonderful about block storage in Lightsail is that you can perform these things called snapshots. Snapshots are wonderful. They basically take the snapshot of an existing disk, it creates a copy of it constantly. It can do automatic stuff, you can do manually, it can incremental. Basically, it's a way to keep your data secure. It's not the end all be all backup solution, but it's great. You snapshot your disk, you nuke your server, you spin up a new one, and you attach this one with the disk, which is just wonderful. It's great. There's a bit of a storage fee when it comes to this one. The only thing you pay for is having that snapshot sit somewhere and having it basically, pay per month depending on how much megabytes the snapshot is. So this is block storage. This is something that should not be new to most of you, and it's pretty straightforward, right? Let's move on to the second thing. Let's talk about file storage. Isn't block storage files? Don't you store files on blocks? Yes, you do. But when we look at file storage is basically files stored in a directory tree. Now, there is still a file system there. There is a disk somewhere, but usually your operating system doesn't handle the actual writing to the disk. It doesn't handle the writing to the blocks. Something else handles writing to the blocks, but your server doesn't. How does that work? Network file systems. Network file systems is a typical example of file storage. What is wonderful about file storage is you can share a single piece of file storage, a single file system among multiple different servers. So in the case of Amazon Lightsail, you can use something like Amazon EFS, which is our elastic file system. It's basically a NAS that runs somewhere in the cloud. And what's great about it, you can just attach this as a NAS thing on your Linux system. It's POSIX compliant, and you can just keep on writing files to it. Your operating system still needs to write to a file system, but the actual writing to the physical blocks to this whole thing is handled by EFS. It's wonderful. It's connected. It's basically an NFS mount. It's accessed through a VPC. It scales as you grow, as you want. I don't want to lie here, but I think the limit is like in petabytes. So I think you will not run out of space on EFS. And what's great, you can actually just spread it around with multiple websites. Let's say you have this WordPress website, and you wanna attach, let's say, a common file system across multiple WordPress websites. This is where you use EFS for. So very simple, very good. But it only works on Linux. If only there was a Windows option. And there is. There's FSX for Windows. It's basically the same thing. It's not NFS, it's not network file system, it's SMB, so it's Samba. The same thing as I said before, but in this case, it has up to 64 terabytes on a file system. It's, again, fully managed, and this is what you would use when it comes to Windows and like your Windows Lightsail instances, and you wish to share a file system between multiple Windows systems. It's just wonderful. Okay, let's move on to number 3, to object storage. What is object storage now? And this is not something super new, but it's something that is newer than the last two things. Data is not stored as a file. Even though you may see it as a file in a folder, it is not a file. It's an object basically identified with a key in a flat namespace. So there's no directory hierarchy. Even though you may see it as a directory hierarchy, it's basically a namespace. It's a bunch of prefixes and your object. The way you access objects is not through a file system call. It's through an API call. It's usually HTTPS. You access the object and you write the object and you read the object through an HTTP call. This is just wonderful, especially for things like when you write once and you want to read it many times, because you get this excellent performance from a object storage. And what is an object storage? What's an example here? Amazon S3. Amazon S3 is an excellent example of Lightsail object storage. So one of the ways you can do it is basically attach a bucket to an EC2 instance and access the files there. Now, again, you're not accessing those files as a file system. You're writing and reading those files through HTTPS. Think of it, your WordPress website. You want to go and store all of your images from WordPress instead of on the hard disk, on the physical disk on the server. You want to store it as an object in S3. That's how you do it. It is great because it gives you this object, this neat, secure, fast, and reliable way of storing files, enormous amount of data. And it's also possible to distribute those files through a CDN. So if you need a content delivery network, if you need to make those files accessible and closer to your audience through the means of global caching, you can actually do that. It's much more difficult to do those things when they're sitting on a hard disk somewhere. When they're objects like this in S3, it's so much better. And It's Amazon Lightsail, so it wouldn't be the same without being super simple to understand when it comes to pricing. So there are flat rates as low as $1 a month for this. So yeah, so this is the Lightsail storage trifecta. You have your block storage on the instance itself. You have your EFS as a file system spread across multiple different instances, and you can also have Lightsail object storage available to you as the means of storing your objects somewhere out there. Okay, let's do something. Let's go. I'm gonna go ahead right now, and I'm gonna create a WordPress website just like you would, and I'm gonna create some storage, and we're gonna be connecting it all, right? So the goal of today is to create a WordPress website on Lightsail, and instead of using local storage on that WordPress website, I'm gonna be using Amazon S3 or Lightsail object storage to store any uploaded file to my blog. So create instance, click number 1. I'm going to be choosing Linux /Unix, and I'm going to be leaving it at WordPress, okay? And I'm going to be doing the second side. I'm going to do $5 a month, right? So I'm choosing the $5 a month option here. We're choosing that we're going to be using the blueprint with WordPress, and I'm going to be calling it, what are we going to call it here? WordPress storage, there you go. That's how many clicks? That's 4 clicks. In 4 clicks, I have launched the WordPress website, which is just wonderful. So it takes a moment for it to kind of spin up and do all of those things. While that is happening, let's go create ourselves a bucket. So click on the storage side here. I'm going to zoom in here a bit so you can see. Click on the storage side. You will see a bunch of options here to create disks. I'm going to go create a bucket. So there's a big old orange button here that says create bucket. Click on that. I'm going to keep the default region, and there's a storage plan. I'm going to keep it as this, and the smallest one. You won't, well, in my case, I won't have more than 5 gigs of data and no more than 25 gigs of storage. That's fine. I'm going to leave this default main. I don't really care for the name of the bucket. It needs to be unique anyway. It's free for the first 12 months. That's pretty good. And click the create bucket. This will now create an S3 bucket. Well, I call it an S3 bucket. It's a Lightsail object storage bucket, but it's an S3 bucket in essence. And that's it. The bucket is created. Let's go back to this thing, and let's see this one. It's running. Okay, let's try to copy paste this thing and see if our WordPress, it's still not up. So we need to give it a moment for this thing to basically set itself up. It takes a moment or so for it to connect. What we're going to be doing here is we're going to be connecting this bucket to WordPress. And the way we're going to be doing it is through the means of a third-party plugin. There's a plugin called Media Lite. Media Lite is again a plugin that's not built by AWS. It's a plugin that basically enables your WordPress website to store files outside of the WordPress server itself. So once again, let's try this. It's still loading, but maybe we can connect to the instance.
Sorry to interrupt. Just had a question about the buckets, asking if public access to the bucket can be blocked.
Oh, yes, excellent. So absolutely. So let me actually show this. I wanted to show that a bit later on. So this is the bucket. By default, the permissions are all objects are private, right? So in this case, basically no access to the bucket whatsoever. I'm going to be changing this permission for all objects are public and read-only. Depending on your use case, you may want to change this, but there's a wonderful document that explains all of these permissions to you. And one thing I like about Lightsail more than its user interface, it's its documentation. So by default, all objects are private. You can go and like defining which objects you can have to be public or not, or you can go the big old route and have everything public. Now, use this with care. This means that everybody will have read access to your objects if they can access them. So some buckets just need to have that, right? For some of them, it makes sense. For example, let's say you have a bucket where you store all of your images. You may want to keep it all publicly available if that's what you want. But sometimes you want to make sure that the individual objects need to be made read-only. So,
excellent. Thank you for that.
Thank you, Stuart. Let's actually save this. So I'm going to make this, yes, I understand. It warns you, be careful with your buckets. Yes, save. And also, I'm going to give my instance access to this. So what I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to attach an instance. So WordPress storage. I'm attaching this instance to this bucket. In essence, it gives this server, it gives this WordPress server the ability to write to this bucket. So click attach, and in a moment, we should be fine. Okay, let's go back to this thing and see if this has actually woken up. Still unable to connect, okay? It takes a moment or so for it to spin up. Let's see if the instance can be connected. Here's the thing. I've been, okay, client unauthorized. So do I need to refresh? I don't, should be fine. Once more. Connecting to your instance, okay, good. We are connected to our instance. As you can see here, I am connected to this Linux server. There's this wonderful browser-based command line SSH access, which is just great. And you're going to be needing this for your WordPress because you need to get your application password. Now, I'm not going to show you the application password. I'm going to move this here. I'm going to open up this thing once again. It should, okay, we have a blog. We're going to do WP admin. All right. All right, it's going to be user, and the password is going to be something else. So cat bitnami application password. It's all in the instructions from Lightsail. But basically, what you need to do is you need to connect to this server via SSH or via this wonderful web-based SSH, and just get the password there from a file in the home directory. Log in. And this should be fine. Perfect. So I got the file, I got the password here. Okay, so what we need to do right now is we need to attach a bucket to this. Well, actually, we need to install a plugin, right? So for example, if I would go and create, I don't know, let's say, let's go ahead and create a post, right? So if I go to Hello World and I go on edit, and yeah, thank you. And I wish to add a file here, for example, if I plus, and I want to add an image, let's upload an image. I think there's a picture of me somewhere in my downloads. Darko, here's the bald head. Do this. It's gonna upload the image on the server itself. Now this image is now sitting on the disk of this WordPress website, which is fine. You know, that's a mighty fine image, but we don't want to do it that way. We actually want to store images, store pictures on S3 because we want them to be resilient. We want them to be accessible through a CDN and all the fun things. So I'm going to go back and leave this page, and I'm going to go to plugins. I'm going to add a plugin. The plugin I'm going to be adding is called Media Lite. So you're going to be seeing here WP Offload Media Lite. Installing this plugin enables WordPress to offload media files, your images, your videos, your whatnots, into a different storage. It can be Amazon S3, it can be DigitalOcean, it can be even Google Cloud. For us, we're going to be using Amazon S3, which is Lightsail object storage. So on the bottom here, go to settings, and there's a couple of ways to access this. You can define your keys here, but we didn't talk about keys. We don't need to care about keys. This server is running on AWS. So basically, if you remember the time I've attached the server to a bucket, basically that's giving it a programmatic access to that bucket. So I don't need to care about keys. I'm gonna select this because my server is on Amazon Web Services. Click on next, and I need to give it the bucket. So go to storage. This is my bucket here, right? Copy the name of the bucket. Paste it here, save bucket settings, and boom, we have access. One thing I'm going to be doing here is I'm going to force HTTPS, so we enable HTTPS access, and save changes. That's it. Now, let's go back to Lightsail. If I go to this bucket and go to objects, you can see the bucket is empty. There are no files there. Let's go back to WordPress and add some files. So I'm going to add a new post. Be creative, call it lorem ipsum. So dolores it amet, and let's add an image. Let's add an image. upload it here, and there's a nice screen here. Well, there we go. I'm uploading this image here, right? Let's call it, that's a big CRT. Good, save. If I go to preview and preview this image here, if I open up this image in a new tab, one of the things you will see here is that this thing is actually sitting on S3. I'm not sure how much you can see it here, but the URL of this thing is an S3 URL. It's not from the server, it's on S3. If we go back to Lightsail and go to object and refresh this bucket's object list, all of a sudden there's a WP content directory on this one. Uploads, 2021, 11, something, and boom. There's different sizes of this image. Now, this has nothing to do with Lightsail. In a sense, Lightsail did not resize your images. Lightsail did not sort your images. This is all the plugin thing. But Amazon Lightsail Object Storage allows you easily to enable S3 object storage options for your WordPress instances on Amazon Lightsail. Just wonderful, super simple. Again, I didn't have to worry about any config files. I didn't have to go and dig into WordPress configuration. It took me 4 clicks to launch a WordPress instance. It took me, I think, 2 clicks to create a bucket, and that's it. Right now, when you go and write your wonderful blog posts about CRT monitors or whatnot, all of the files will be available directly in Amazon S3, or in this case, in Lightsail Object Storage. All right, let's go back to this thing here. Right, so
sorry, just before you move on, Darko, just another quick question. Are you able to share these buckets with other AWS accounts?
No. So these buckets are only accessible in a programmatic means through this account. Right? There's no way that you can, because here's the thing: like this bucket is not going to be existing in your AWS account. It's a hidden bucket. The only way only permissions you can set up on this bucket is just which instance has access to it, right? So if you do permissions, you have this one, and you can also you can create access keys technically, right? You can generate access keys. So you can also do cross-account access. There you go. I was wrong. So you can generate access keys, which basically gives you the ability to create specific sets of credentials. And in essence, anybody can access this bucket. Also, you can add a specific account to this so they can have access to this bucket from a different account. So yes, you
nice.
can.
Excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, let me go back to this thing here, the trifecta. So how does this all fit in? You've seen an example of me attaching a Lightsail object storage to a WordPress instance. But how do the other things fit in, right? Your system disk, your block storage will be your OS disk. So that's the thing that kind of came with the instance itself, right? I can attach multiple disks in this case. I didn't do that. It was just a single disk. When it comes to EFS, you can have multiple WordPress websites all connected to the same elastic file system where you can store your configuration files, your utilities, whatnot you need to do to access them from multiple different WordPress servers. Let's say you're hosting, you are hosting WordPress websites for other people. You may want to have a single shared file system where you access specific utilities, files, configurations, scripts. You would use Amazon EFS for that. So if you want to store object storage from that WordPress website, your pictures, your videos, all of the things that your end users will access, things that may want to go over the cloud delivery network or CDN, you will use Lightsail Object Storage, which is backed by Amazon S3. Summarize, I don't need to summarize. Block storage, the OS disk, the thing that's connected to your server. EFS, which is your file storage, which is the thing you can share between multiple servers, and Lightsail Object Storage, Amazon S3, a place to store all your files, videos, and anything your end users will use. So I talked to you today about how you can run a WordPress website on Lightsail, but that's not all, right? You can host multiple different workloads on Lightsail. You have multiple different storage options for any sort of need on Amazon Lightsail. So whether you're hosting a web application, a line of business application, Windows workload, .NET application, an Active Directory server as well, all of those things can exist. But we added a bunch of other options for you to kind of make your life easier when it comes to attaching up multiple disks, sharing files between multiple servers, and also putting objects such as videos, images, or whatnot, big things on a proper object storage and attaching all of that to your Lightsail instances. With that, thank you very much. I really hope you enjoyed this presentation. I don't have my social media connections here, but feel free to reach out to me via LinkedIn, Twitter, MySpace. I don't know, all the things. And I would like to thank Stuart and the people here for giving me the opportunity to talk to all of you. And yeah, any questions, feel free to point them my way.
Thank you very much, Darko. It was a great presentation, insightful, useful, and I love the demonstration too. It was nice to see how kind of easy it was to put together with just a few clicks. And obviously, I love the old school props as well. It's always good to see the old tech in there. What was that? Was that a 40 meg drive? Was it?
44 megabyte drive. Yeah, it's a 44 meg drive and an Intel Pentium Pro. This is a 166 megahertz Pentium 1 from 1995. So yeah. Yeah,
lightning fast.
Oh, well. There you go, lightning fast.
I'd also like to thank everyone else on the call for joining us today as well, and for the questions that come in. Really appreciate that participation, interaction. As a reminder to everyone, you'll receive the recording via email as soon as it's available. And also don't forget to check out our other webinars, which you can find on our website at cloudacademy.com. And also before we finish as well, please be aware that starting tomorrow and running through all the way to reInvent and beyond, we have our AWS Certified Solutions Architect Associate and also our Developer Associate webinar series. So if you are studying for any of these certifications, then please come along and register for these so we can help you get prepared for your certifications. Do you have any closing comments, Darko, before we go?
Get certified. That's my whole thing. And not because of the certification. It will actually, I got myself my Solutions Architect Associate, not because I need a certificate, but because it made me study. So I actually learned a lot more things while preparing for the certificate than anything else. So if you are thinking whether you should take the certificate, you should do it.
Good point. Great point. So yeah, once again, thank you very much, Darko, and to everyone that joined us today. Thank you and goodbye.
Bye.